and it is Sunday Night Live, and we are talking about spiritual matters today. I am Christine Hart, and your host, and we have the guest, Brian Barrott, author and Jinn expert, and he is just going to be sharing to us today about the Fabian Society, Aleister Crowley, what's happening in the world today. Welcome to the show again, Brian. How are you?
Yeah, I'm great, thank you. I hope you're fine. Hope you're well.
Bearing up, considering circumstances of what's going on, the total chaos and horror.
It's really interesting that you mentioned this about what is actually happening. I mean, obviously there's nothing new under the sun, and if we, the nearest time we've got to this kind of warfare, people will say, oh, it was World War II. But in reality, the mass slaughtering of human beings started in World War One.
Right.
And it was very interesting what Gurdjieff had to say about this. Right. Obviously, Gurdjieff was... I think the best way we can describe him is left-hand path Christianity, to put it bluntly. But he was a highly intelligent person. He was rumoured to be a spy, and he was rumoured to be connected to the Fabian Society. But the Fabian Society was a British socialist organisation whose purpose, they declare, is to advance the principles of social democracy and democratic socialism via a gradualist reformist effort in present-day democracies rather than a revolutionary overflow. I mean, you can read into that what you like, but essentially the fact that they want to take over democracies with a socialist ideology would say that perhaps it's not as democratic as what they're talking about. But anyway,
what did Gurdjieff have to say about mass destruction of humankind?
Yeah. Well, he was very interesting on it. He said that essentially 99% of the human population are just machines, and he said that essentially because we're machines and we're taught to think like machines, we don't see our spiritual potential. We only see ourselves as machines. And of course, the ultimate aim for a machine is self-destruction. Yeah, because you will become obsolete. And he saw the war as people understanding that there was some kind of obsolescence to them as human beings. And if you think about it, World War One in particular, they must have been like machines, because my great-great-grandfather was in the First World War, and literally they blew a whistle, they put the ladders against the wall of the trenches, the men crawled out of the trenches, and you were guaranteed to be shot or injured. There was no two ways around it. But men did that by the thousands. Yeah. So there's how do you think about yourself if you're going to do that? Then you must obviously think of yourself as part of the machine, not necessarily a human, because realistically, what human wants to put his head above the trenches and be blown to smithereens? So I think Gurdjieff was really succinct in that analysis, and the point is that we are not taught to be religious. We are not taught to understand the soul. We're not taught about what it is to be human. We are always given the north-south divide. We're always told that it's them and us. We don't think of the world as some homogeneous place to live. we see the world as purely them and us. And this has been for literally thousands and thousands of years. I mean, it goes right back to the Greeks. I mean, even the Greeks, as wise as what they were, when Socrates was asked what person should be a slave, and he said anything that is considered lower than a dog can be a slave. Now, interestingly, one of the signs in America was literally this. It was no dogs, blacks or Irish. So they considered the blacks and Irish below the dog. Yeah. Okay. So, so where does this mentality come from? Where does this mentality, become developed? And of course, it comes from the political elite who teach us at school that essentially, like anything beyond your borders is inferior to yourself. I mean, that was definitely the East India company in India. And the same with the Portuguese. I mean, all these countries ransacked and stole and murdered and raped, all in the name of liberation or sort of trade. But realistically, once again, we have a position where people are just acting like machines. They are not acting like humans. They are not thinking of the consequence. They are like ants invading another colony. And I think Gurdjieff was correct in his assumption that until humanity can stop thinking like machines, we will just continue the same cycle, because there's no evidence this cycle has not stopped. I mean, at the moment, there are so many wars going on in the world. It's quite ridiculous. You've got Yemen, you've got what's happening with Israel and Gaza, you've got Ukraine. You have masses and masses and masses of people being killed, but people don't think that children are dying, women are dying, people who are defenseless are dying. And, and the only way you can think like that is if you are programmed to think like a machine or like an ant, the hive mind, so to speak. And I think that that's the problem. And I really think that Gurdjieff was correct, that we are not thinking like humans, we are thinking like machines. And while we think like machines, we will never progress. Seriously. And the evidence is there. Look how many wars there are actually happening at the moment. It's ridiculous. And
yeah, you're right. Most people are taking sides, but a lot of people don't like what's happening out in Gaza, and they feel horrified by the pictures that are coming out, horrified that they're not allowed to. I mean, yes, I know Hamas is there amongst them, but it's a bit like us bombarding the whole of Ireland because of the IRA. England never did that. It could have done that easily, but it didn't do that. So the world is shocked and horrified. So don't you think a lot of us are thinking like, don't you think it's our leaders' fault?
well, it makes no difference what we think. I mean, if you can remember Desert Storm, okay, during the Blair and Bush era, people were up in arms about Desert Storm and Saddam Hussein, and there was human shields and everything, and Blair and Bush really couldn't have cared what people were thinking at all.
Yeah.
And I mean, there was only really a few brave people who spoke out. Galloway spoke out. Yeah, I mean, he was very, very vocal. But realistically, the powers that be lied It's been proven historically they lied about weapons of mass destruction to completely destroy an Arab nation. Yeah, and they did pretty much the same with Muammar Gaddafi as well. You know, so you know, I think the point is that if you look at the evidence, you look at Muammar Gaddafi, you look at Desert Storm, really we are voiceless.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean,
Yeah,
100%. Yeah, we're just treated like, you know, prisoners. Oh, look, the prisoners are upset. Oh, look, the prisoners having a little demonstration. Oh, look, let's send the prisoners home. Oh, let's give them another virus to cope with. Let's, you know, get them all to get their vaccines. It's like we're a prison population for sure. I mean, is there any way out of this? Is there anything we can do? I suppose the only thing is
well, I
to.
mean, the thing that Gurdjieff was saying was that people have to learn to think. But the point being is it's very, very difficult to think because quite simply we're not taught to think. We are only taught to react. Okay? You know, I mean, sort of like, you know, if you look back to the 1950s, I can't use the word, but there was a swear word used to describe anything beyond Dover. Yeah, okay. I mean, we can politely say foreigners, but the word that they used began with a W. Yeah, okay. And that attitude was prevalent right the way up to probably the 80s. Okay.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
And then what happened in the 80s and early 90s under Blair, we started getting an influx of many different nationalities. And, you know, once again, you know, these nationalities in general did not blend into the community. So there's very much like them and us again, you know, like we're almost fed this innocuous way of thinking, and it's only until we can think of ourselves as human and understand our true potential that we will actually move on. But to actually do that, then you know the whole thing needs changing. You know the whole education system. People have to stop thinking the way they are thinking. Maybe
Okay,
it will happen.
so say you were talking to me, which you are, and I said to you, how do I start to think? What would you tell me?
Well, the thing is there's a Zen proverb. Um, was it Alan Watts often repeats it? He went to see a Zen master, and the Zen master kept on pouring tea until all the tea poured out all over the cup. And he said to the Zen master, "Why are you doing that?" And he said, "It's to show you that unless the cup is empty, you cannot gain knowledge. So to really learn how to think, you have to get rid of all the knowledge that you've been given, because there's you know, and then put new knowledge where it should be." And a lot of people won't do that because you know we have core belief systems. We all have core belief systems. I mean, the difference between, say, my mother before she died and me was incredibly different because she had belief systems that were tied into really when England was an empire. Yeah, okay. Where I wasn't brought up with England was an empire. I was brought up in the 60s, 70s England. Yeah, okay. So we had two very different mentalities. But I couldn't, I mean, my mother was incredibly intelligent. I couldn't have told my mother to change her ideas and her structure of how she thinks. She would have been overtly angry. And that's the problem with people that we have to understand that we are fed ideologies. And around these ideologies, we are then given information. And for something to be completely eradicated, you have to understand that it starts at what your ideology and ethos and philosophical outlooks are. And realistically, who is going to do that? Who is going to say, right, I'm willing to change everything that I know? Very few people will do that, if anybody.
Do you think, though, that I've often observed as an Irish person in England that sometimes I feel slightly, hugely isolated. And I never knew what it was, but I tend to get on really well with Irish people, specifically those in Northern Ireland. And when I was living in Northern Ireland, I didn't feel lonely. I was surrounded by people that don't judge over class, that were creative. I felt freer, and I thought to myself, if I'd have lived over there, I probably would have had a better life, more friends. I probably would have married. And I think that probably you can see it by the way people don't really mix with each other. It's very cliquey in around the London suburbs. It's very cliquey in Indian areas, Pakistani areas, and you have to actually fit in with these different pockets. If you don't, you end up having a pretty difficult and hard life. I mean, I would know. I've lived that out. So, are you saying that we should accept a world where it's washed with lots of different races and we should get on? Because I think actually deep down, races don't get on with each other because God did put us in different countries and we don't resonate with each other. I don't resonate with the English, something in the way they are, something in the way I am, that they tend to judge, I think, a lot because it's the way they are. Whereas Irish are more, they talk about the dream they had last night, whereas an Irish person, an English person might raise their eyebrows and want to talk about something more proper. So there's a clash, no matter how much you might want to get on with them and you like them. I mean, I really like Indian people. I'd like to live amongst them. But, at the end of the day, would I actually enjoy it, or would I start to feel a bit like I've got culture shock? I mean, don't you think the different
Yeah,
races
this
should
is the
be?
difficulty. This is the difficulty. The fact is, we've had hundreds of years where we've been brought up with us and them. Yeah, okay.
Mhm.
And to change that dynamic, and to look at everybody as human, and to look at everybody as families and friends. It really takes a lot of doing, because the racism is inherent. Yeah, it doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter where you're from. That the racism can be stoked at any time, which has been proven with everybody is anti-Russian. Yeah, okay, you're not allowed to be racist, but you can be anti-Russian. Okay, so
Well, yeah,
so
I mean, apparently now on Twitter you can slag off Muslim people. It's allowed. I mean, there's a lot of Muslims are animals, and it's not been stopped. But 2 weeks ago, that wasn't allowed. That wasn't okay. Now it seems that it's okay. I mean, which obviously is wrong. But I mean, do you think, though, as I was saying about me not getting on with the English, and obviously I wanted to since I was a child, but they think differently. I think differently. And my son actually mentioned it, and he said your DNA doesn't resonate with theirs, your genetics doesn't resonate with theirs. And I think to a certain point that is true. Why did God make us different if he didn't? I mean, if surely God wouldn't make us. I mean, he made us different, right? Maybe we're supposed to stay in our little corrals so we can cope. Maybe, I grew up in England. I haven't coped very well. And actually, I think it's because of that. Bottom line, I think it's because I am deep down in my blood Irish.
Well, there you go. I mean, that's the whole thing, isn't it? I mean, we all have core belief systems, yeah, and these
But
core
hang on,
belief
Brian,
systems.
do you think that's a core belief system, or do you think it's blood? Actually, I think it's weird because when I was a journalist and I went over to Belfast just by accident, I was sent there by the News of the World, and I started to literally feel it in my blood, a resonation with the Irish Catholics. I literally felt it. I couldn't even control it. And I interviewed a British soldier. He was an SAS officer. And he said, "You feel it in your blood when you go there, don't you?" I said, "Yes." I literally thought I was going crazy. My blood started to sing whenever I was near these people. I mean, I thought, well, I'm going crazy. I must be an IRA supporter or something. But it was just blood. It's blood. It's in the blood. And I don't think people can change. I don't think it's a belief system. I think it's blood. And now we're
No,
all
yeah,
mixed together.
I disagree because,
Really?
yeah, because um, I'm trying to say, the guy who lived on the paddle steamer, he wrote Tom Sawyer, Mark Twain, yeah, Mark
Uh-huh.
Twain. Mark Twain says, if you don't want to be racist, travel. Now, I'm not being big-headed, and I'm certainly not saying this for any kind of bravado or one-upmanship, but I probably travel more than anybody. Okay, yeah, all right.
Uh-huh.
Seriously, I travel to Arab countries, I travel to Indian countries. I'm in Portugal at the moment. I was in the Czech Republic before that. Yeah, okay. Like I've been all over Europe. We travel an awful lot. And I would say that because of travel, I'm probably the least racist person that you can actually meet because I've met many, many, many people in their own country, in their own lands, and the similarities between us far outweigh the differences. Absolutely. Because when I went to Germany, I was surprised how close Germans are in the way they behave, etc., to what British people are like.
Hmm.
When we go to India, there are amazing parallels between Ukrainian people and Indian people. I know that sounds bizarre, but they're very similar in nature and behavior. And so,
But aren't you one of those people? You're one of those people that do. There are people like that mix in with other races really well, and I think you're probably one of them because you've got a curious mind. So I think there are unusual people like you, but I think the rest of us, the rest of us aren't really like that. We can't. Don't you think then? Do you personally think that my inability to get on a really deep level with the English, do you think that's my fault? Bottom line.
well, I mean, the thing is we create our own worlds, don't we? Yeah.
Right, right, right.
It's that simple. And
But don't you think
if you
that
find yourself not being able to communicate,
right?
well, you have to look at yourself first. Yeah. It's like writing letters for job interviews. You can blame the people for not allowing you to have a job interview,
Hmm.
but maybe you're writing the letter in the wrong way. And it's just as simple as when you're meeting other people, perhaps you're not communicating in the best way that you can possibly communicate with them. Yeah, okay. Which is really important because what we have to understand is that we are all essentially human, and we all have families, we all have experience of life and death. We all have religious belief systems, and we all cope from every day to day.